This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Let's go to line number one. And caller, you're on the air.
Hi.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Oh,
Well, I'm not good.
Oh, yeah, I can sense
it's
sense it in your.
to say good.
I could sense it in your voice. What's wrong? What's up?
I'm calling about housing and their treatment of their residents, and I don't condone what's going on with the housing now, like with the drug houses and stuff like that. But I can see where anger gets built up throughout the time, you know. I had a stroke on Easter Sunday. I was in my apartment for 4 days. I know people passed by and I yelled out help and I banged things and made noise, and I know they just totally ignored me. But eventually I was found on the fourth day, got to hospital. I was admitted in hospital for a month and a half. Right from the get-go, it was a nightmare with housing. They did not secure my door immediately. There was a food hamper from Connections for Seniors delivered, and the driver phoned me in the hospital and told me that he dropped off a hamper. And I said, go back and get it. I'm in the hospital. And he said, I'm too far out. He said, phone a friend. And I phoned a friend, and she came up, and it was gone. Somebody stole it immediately. And my friend had notified me in hospital when she finally did get the key after it was given to a wrong tenant that my floor was flooded from my fridge. So she turned the breaker off of it. It was pretty much broken as far as she could see, right? She cleaned up the mess, and she cleaned up my apartment after me being here for 4 days. And I was given a form in the hospital for her to be able to get paid for it by the ministry. And I've been getting to run around ever since, not knowing where to send it to. So I finally talked with the ministry, and the ministry said, yes, send it to them so that she can get paid. She still hasn't been paid. I was released from hospital on April 2nd. I have a stove. They left the fridge here. By the time I got out of hospital, everything was moldy and bubbling in the fridge, and I had no other choice but dive into it myself. And I did. And I had a couple of scarves around my face and gloves on, and it was horrible. And having the doors open, the smell that was created in the house was absolutely disgusting. And I go to Miller Center for day appointments now for rehabilitation, and I haven't been able to attend any because I feel sick. I went down there last week, but my blood pressure was sky high, and it's because of the stress that I had been having to deal with. I went 2.5 weeks without a fridge and stove. 2.5 weeks without a fridge and stove. Having to store sandwich meat at another neighbor's apartment and mayo. And I mean, I couldn't figure out any other options, really. So I was like living off of a sandwich a day. I phoned my MHA, Jim Din, and she sounded like she was going to be so helpful to me. I was looking for a cooler, at least, right? Because this was Thursday. And I wanted to get a cooler before the weekend so I could put some yogurt and stuff like that in it. And she actually said to me, I heard the word. She said, I think we might have a cooler in the back and a gift card. And she said, this is grocery delivery day. And she said, I'll phone you. She said, will you have a ride tomorrow? I said, I can get one. I said, but it's on a time frame because my son has to work. And she said, okay. She said, I'll phone you first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning came, she didn't call, so I called her, left a message. She called me back, and she gave me a phone number for the March of Dimes. That was it. She didn't mention the cooler. She didn't mention the gift card. She did not mention any groceries.
I don't know why specifically just the March of Dimes, but caller, there's a lot there. I just want to ask you a couple of quick things. First of all, you had a stroke, and you had a stroke, and for 4 days You couldn't what?
I was in my apartment.
And
Yeah.
how did the stroke debilitate you? What was the result of it?
My whole left side was numb. My arm I could move a bit, but my leg not at all. Like I was basically going around in a circle because I was constantly trying to get to my bedroom. My phone was in there, my medication was in there, and I just could not get in there. And on the fourth night, I basically just gave up and put my head down and said, I got to get some sleep. Now, I was probably nodding off throughout the day because of that. I was trying to reach a blanket. I couldn't even reach a blanket on the floor, anything. I heard people going through the doors walking their dog, and I know the neighbors. And soon I would wait to hear them in the morning, afternoon, and evening and yell out, help, help, help. And no response. They just walked right on by.
And you couldn't get to your phone? You have a phone, but you couldn't get to it or make any kind of an emergency call?
Yeah, it was in the bedroom on charger.
So you couldn't move around the house at all?
No. I was basically going around in a circle.
And nobody give a knock on the door? And well, the friend that managed to help you out, I mean, keep her on. The other thing is, too, as you mentioned, a fridge and stove, no fridge and stove for 2 weeks. Where did they go? Where did the fridge and stove go?
They said because I couldn't see the serial numbers on them. They were so old that the serial numbers were worn off them. They said because I didn't have the serial numbers, they were going to have to look harder to find the proper fridge and stove to fit into the spot. Now, I can understand that, but does it take 2.5 weeks? Right?
Were they broken and completely unusable? I might have missed that part, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I don't know anything about them, right?
So they came in while...
Other people said that.
And they came in...
They phoned me, and it was a delivery service that phoned me, and they phoned me when I was in my doctor's office on the following Wednesday after I got out of hospital. And they said that they will be delivering the fridge and stove on the following Tuesday. I said, I can't go that long. Like, come on, guys, I've already suffered enough, right? I can't. Like, can you give me something? You know?
Yeah, and on that note...
my doctor even spoke up, and she said, you can't do that to her. She said, I'm going to be making phone calls.
Just a quick, I want to try to get to the crux here before I got to go. You're back in the unit now.
Yeah.
So your immediate need is...
Since the second. Breathing in this mold because it totally stunk, and I had to get the stuff out of there. And then that just made it 10 times worse in the apartment. So it was humiliating for anybody to even come in here.
So what's the latest from housing, if anyone you've spoken to, about the cleanliness of the unit and your appliances?
Yes, I did. I said about the cleanliness of the apartment and about the appliances several times. I was hung up on several times. I was told that I was crazy basically yesterday because the stove did get delivered. But he told me, this is bizarre, he told me he can't put the back part on the fridge, you know, where our clock usually is and the buttons and stuff. He said he can't put that on. He said that the landlord has to come and put it on. He said, so you're not allowed to use your stove until that's done.
So we're getting into a little bit more of the nitty gritty there. The bottom line, I guess, is you're back there, but as long as you're in communication with NLHC and they know your needs and you've been here to express them. I have, interestingly enough, someone's been listening in. The March of Dimes has been listening into our conversation. And I have... I have the coordinator for after stroke care on the line, so I'm going to take a break here now. Keep listening to your phone, and we have your number. And please let us know if you get anywhere with the housing on your immediate needs, and keep listening because a spokesperson for the March of Dimes with after stroke care is coming up next on the show.
Okay, perfect.
Take care and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number 2. And Susan Ridgely Galway, you're on the air.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for taking my call. First of all, congrats on your appointment to your new role. I think you're doing a great job.
I really appreciate it. It's great to hear from you.
I called in, on previous occasions, just wanting to let Newfoundlanders and Labradorians know about the program that we have in our own home province, and the things that we do and the things that we certainly don't do. So I was just listening. I had you on in the background and heard the lady who just called in. Mm-hmm. It sounds like there's definitely a lot going on there, and maybe some missed steps and miscommunication for sure. I think that the route that she's taking by, contacting the minister's office and reaching out to Connections for Seniors, that's awesome that she's sort of making those links between what she needs and what's in her community. And while I'm really happy that, the March of Dimes After Stroke program was on the lips and on the minds of the minister's office, I think that it was probably done because they didn't know what else to do. I'm not really sure. But, we do have, so for starters, as a coordinator, after stroke coordinator within Newfoundland and Labrador, I provide support to stroke survivors and their loved ones and their caregivers. And we do that through education programs, through peer support, skill development. We have speech and communication programs for anyone with aphasia. We have exercise and movement programs, and we have in-person groups happening in a few communities across the province. There's one in St. John's at the Miller Centre once a month, and there's one in Clarenville once a month. We're working on Corner Brook. So we're meant to be a warm handoff from hospital to home. So most of the referrals that I would get, unless someone, of course, self-refers, most of the referrals that I would get would be from allied health professionals, the frontline workers who are working with stroke survivors and their loved ones. And then it would be my job to reach out and say, how's it going? What are you struggling with? Where are your challenges? How can I support you to navigate the next steps, right, on your stroke journey? Really, like, I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Join the club. Oh my God, I'm Susan. I'm so glad you did, because God, it happens to me way on too much of a regular basis.
There you go.
Yeah.
Are you in menopause too, Brian?
Not that I know of, but I haven't seen my doctor lately. I should get checked, I suppose. I could have any number of conditions today, Susan.
There you go. So, we do have all those programs and support. Our North Star would be for allied health professionals at the Miller Centre, at Western Memorial, at GB Cross, at James Payton, to refer stroke survivors and their loved ones to our program. Barring that, and then that allows me as the after stroke coordinator to say, what do we have as an organization that I can connect you with? Any of the things that I just mentioned, like the exercise or the aphasia support, and what's in your own home community. So whether you're in Botwood or Brigus or Placentia, what can I connect you with that's in your home community? The caller that just phoned in, it sounds like she has all the numbers. Like, I would have connected her with Connections for Seniors. I would have encouraged her to reach out to her MHA. I would have encouraged all those things. I mean, there are a lot of things that we don't do. There are more that we do, so we're not going to provide transportation or, meals or, a new fridge, and it sounds like what she's needing is kind of bigger than what we can provide.
Yeah.
What I can provide her, though, is it sounds like, she's probably needing some support. She's got, some challenges that I can probably help her kind of walk through with her and help see, that she's, calling the right people and that she kind of feels supported. She's doing outpatient at the Miller, which is great, but she's home now trying to figure out the next steps, and that's where we can come in. So it's great that our name was given, but but maybe in a different context, I guess.
No, and absolutely, you're right. I mean, right now the focus would be on just, assisting what she needs as far as coordination goes. What does she need and how can she get it, as opposed to you being March of Dimes providing those kinds of tangible or appliances and drives and all that stuff. I totally get it. But the coordination that the March of Dimes has, as you said, with the Miller Center, with the rehabilitation efforts down there and health sciences and throughout NLH services is crucial. Do you have a way we have her number, just to ensure, at least for whatever you can do for her, and specific to this caller, you have, contact for her and that sort of thing? Like, would you be able to look it up in the system that you've been assisting her?
So her name is not familiar to me, which leads me to believe that a referral has not been made.
Okay.
And so the sad reality is that unless, referrals are made by frontline workers, then I have no way. My system does not, is not in tandem with theirs. So, they.
Maybe that's something that we could look at. Yeah, maybe that's something that can be improved. I don't know if it's improved is the right word, but maybe that's something that
we're working on that, Brian.
Yeah.
We're working on that.
I can appreciate.
We're definitely working because our goal is really to not have stroke survivors and their loved ones return home and be completely overwhelmed.
Sure.
And need support but not know where to get it. I don't want anyone to go home to their home community. God knows, that when you're in hospital, all you want to do is go home, even if it's not the right time for you. So when people do eventually get to go home, I want to be able to reach out and support them as best we can. And sometimes, Brian, you may have an individual who wants to plug into all of the programs that we offer, and you may have some individuals that just need a little bit of help navigating the supports and the organizations that are already out there that are meant to kind of fill those gaps, right?
Absolutely. And look, Susan, I appreciate the information on all of this and getting to it so quickly. Look, this is the value of Open Line, the importance of it.
Here.
Yeah, look, as you said, you heard it on in the background. This woman clearly has a situation that could be much better. And a place like March of Dimes might not be the first service that comes to a lot of people's minds. So it's not only important for her, for this particular woman, but I can guarantee you, and you know this, I don't need to tell you, there are other people probably out there in the same boat, or just, or maybe not in the same boat yet, but may, unfortunately, have this kind of a situation happen to them. And it's good to know, just a reminder to the general public, that in addition to the health system, we have a lot of great organizations out there who can assist and complement the healthcare system toward getting people rehabilitated, getting them back into some kind of level of comfort after the devastating impact of a stroke, right? So.
Absolutely. And Brian, Newfoundland and Labrador sees almost 1,600 strokes a year.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of stroke survivors that are, medically discharged from whatever facility they're in. They go home and then really they're left to say, well, what's in my community? How do I connect with a speech language pathologist?
Yeah.
I'm struggling with mobility. What do I do? I've got financial concerns. I just need to talk about that. And that's where we come in. It's really a tailored sort of approach to help people that are impacted by stroke establish a sense of connection and equip them with, the tools and the resources that they need in order to resume their lives.
And anyone who's gone through it, such as our family, and I watched my father in the immediate aftermath of a stroke. It's very scary. These commercials out there are very effective. The ones that sometimes it's hard to watch these heart and stroke commercials where, a family is going about it and all of a sudden someone starts to go, and it gives me chills watching how they react, and you don't know what to do in the moment, let alone in the weeks and months afterwards. So
for sure, it's a long road. It's a long road, and at the end of the day, I mean, the Heart and Stroke Foundation is wonderful, but for the most part, they're doing, the research. They're the brains and
proactively
the time, behind all that, like the studies and the research behind stroke. And cardiovascular issues. the March of Dimes After Stroke program is really, boots on the ground calling, stroke survivors. Yep. So I can give you my, anybody can call me. You definitely are going to have people who are out there. Maybe they had their stroke 2 years ago. Maybe they had their stroke 2 months ago, and they still don't know about our program. Individuals can come to us for support at any point, right? If you're a stroke survivor, it doesn't matter where you are kind of on the road to recovery. That's what we're here for. So anyone listening, by all means, you have nothing to lose by giving me a call. I'm the voice behind the phone number that I'm going to give you. And I'll also give you our website where people can kind of go and explore some of the programs that we have and some of the things that I'm talking about, but on a more fulsome level.
So is this the 6666 number?
No, my number is 709 351 7111. 351 7111. And I encourage stroke survivors, their loved ones, or even health professionals to go to afterstroke.ca and then you'll see everything that we kind of touched on today,
Susan,
and how to connect.
Look, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. You never know what's going to come at us in the morning, and this information is invaluable. Right. So thank you again. Well,
listen. Yeah. One last thing is you don't know about something until you're impacted by it, right?
Correct.
Your family didn't know about stroke until you were impacted by it, and then overnight you're like, okay, what do we need to do? Where do we have to go? Yep. That's why we're here. So anybody that's listening can certainly give me a call at any point, and I can lead you to the
down the road
proper channel.
Yeah, and we have that information here now too. So if anyone wants it, they can give us a shout just to double check the number. So Susan Ridgely, yes, after stroke coordinator with the March of Dimes in this province. Thank you again for your time today. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much. All right, Brian, take care.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go right to line number 4, and Mike, you're on the air.
Hi, Brian. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Thank you very much. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to share my experience a couple weeks ago. I went into the boards pretty hard and hurt my ribs, back and side. And so that afternoon, I went to the urgent care center, and up until now, all I had heard was negative experiences and things that people leaving there not happy. So obviously, I went in there with a little bit of a skepticism, but I have to say I went in and right from the very first touch point of the security guard and the person at the front desk, the nurse, the doctors, everybody that looked after me right from start to finish, I couldn't have asked for a better experience. Like, it was absolutely fantastic. Within 2 hours, I had talked to a doctor virtually, I guess, through FaceTime twice, and also had all my x-rays done, and I was out of there with a diagnosis and a plan. So I think, in this day and age, people tend to amplify the negative experiences. And, I've always been one to judge my experiences and judge, businesses and people on how they affect me, and it was absolutely fantastic start to finish, and I think these people need to know that.
Yeah, a lot of people need to know that, because we're hearing a lot of the negative, and as you've probably heard, Mike, trying to change a mindset into the positivity versus the negativity, and these are the kind of calls that we're always looking for. Again, it's kind of like a repetition, and it may be ad nauseum for some people, but we know that the frontline workers are there doing their, darndest to, keep everything afloat as we change whatever it is, whether it's the core care system to more virtual, whether it's, you name it, we're, having, more negative calls than positive, but these kind of calls kind of balance it out and show a truer reflection, if you will,
Well, I think you're completely right there. Where people do look for. I don't know. I don't want to say it's human nature because it's not my human nature. People that I coach, but it's so common that people look for the negative, and that's what kind of gets the momentum, and that's what gets people talking together. And I always try to have people look for the positive. Regardless of what they're doing, they're trying to add a new habit into their lifestyle or whatever that looks like. Don't think about where you've been or what's happened in the past. Think about going forward and how things affected you. And it's like you said. Frontline workers, no matter what you look at, we don't see what's going on in the background. We don't see, their constraints and their workload. So it's important to give them the credit where it's due, for sure.
Mike, I was having a a crash of systems here when you first started talking. I was listening, but can you just remind me again where you went and when you were there?
Okay, so it was 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
2 weeks ago on Friday afternoon, I was there at about 1 o'clock. I don't know how much you got of that, but I'd hurt my ribs playing hockey. I went into the boards quite hard, and like I said, it was at the urgent care clinic, and it was absolutely fantastic, start to finish.
So you wouldn't have come in necessarily as a what they might call in the police realm a priority one. I mean, the ribs are fine. If you go in, I went in with an almost sliced off finger one day, and I was in lickety split, of course, because there was blood and there was, it seemed obviously urgent. You don't know what people are going through sometimes in the waiting room. They may look completely content, but who knows what's happening, right? And we don't know, and that's when the judging occurs and we see problems in the emergency rooms and that sort of thing. But it's great to hear that you were... Yeah, sorry, go.
That's exactly true. Like, I looked at, initially I went in and I was put on a wait list, and of course, that was my first touch point. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. And you looked in the weight room and there's only 4 or 5 people in there. But again, we don't know what's going on in the back. We don't know who they're dealing with. And I was, if I had to wait till the next day or whatever that looked like, if I had to come back, that would have been okay. But we don't know. And for me to be in and out of there in 2 hours, was absolutely fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic.
You certainly must have hit the sweet spot. Listen, I appreciate it, Mike. We're always looking for the good news, and we have a little click on our website there for anybody who wants to submit anything, just a positive note. And if we see it, we may even give you a shout and get you on open line. But look, thanks for contributing to that, trying to really keep things positive. We know we can't ignore the big news of the day, but these kind of calls reassure us that we're all good people. It's just sometimes we can only do the best with what we have, and it sounds like that's what they did in your case.
And we can't, I'm going to catch you there. We can a little bit ignore some of the big news. How does it really affect us individually? And try to focus on the positive, unless it really affects us, right? I think there's just too much focus on the negative.
Nope.
Too much focus on the negative. So, but I appreciate you having me on, Brian, and maybe we can talk again anytime.
Yep. No, I appreciate you making time and even thinking of giving us a shout to share that. It's really necessary, and I can guarantee you people in the healthcare realm are listening to it, and you're putting a little bit of a better feeling in the pit of the stomach as opposed to, the bitching and complaining that we do often get. And I'm not saying that it's not legitimate sometimes, but it certainly can be, especially if you're in that situation. But for you hit the sweet spot, obviously. And I know there are people screaming not screaming, but saying to the radio, wow, 2 hours, like that's just unheard of, really. I haven't heard anything like that, whether it's ribs or anything else. So, yeah, good.
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
All positive. Positive. Really great.
Good on the urgent care system. All right. Thanks, Mike. Again, don't be a stranger. Thanks a lot for this. Contribute anytime on any topic.
Thanks, Brian. You take care.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number 3. And caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Good morning.
Yes, yet another disgruntled tradesman with the MOS. You must be sick of us calling him by now, are you?
No. I am not at all, obviously, because this is the forum for you and for others who have good or bad news. It's frustrating news in your case, I guess, going back to not at all. And you go right ahead. I'm going to let you go because the more people that weigh in on this, the more we get a better picture of what exactly is the issue here.
Yeah, well, we're not going to stop calling in. We're going to keep calling in until every one of us do. I guess that's up to you. But
Oh, well, and Dave, but yes, you're more than welcome. Did you catch Jerry Earle, the NAPE president, on our program earlier the week?
yeah, I did, and I got to be honest, Jerry confuses me sometimes because, like, he's on the program talking about all the tradesmen are not being paid a fair wage in comparison to other job sites and whatnot. But, I mean, on the last contract, that was only a few years ago, he was like, well, this is the best you're going to get, guys. You know, you better say yes to this. And I don't really understand because the wages weren't any better then than they are now. So, like, is he going to say the same thing this time, that we all have to say yes? I don't know, I'm kind of confused by that.
I understand what you're saying. There's a level of stating the obvious, certainly, that comes with Jerry's comments, for sure, and as he described it, pitting worker against worker. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say that's true. But he also said that talking about on their website about that was on their Facebook and on their webpage and stuff like that. But you look through the Facebook page or their website, and there's not a lot of information there about us. I don't know. I mean, he's acting like it's a big deal, but it doesn't seem like it's a big deal on NAPE's website if you look at it, or the Facebook page. So I don't know about that.
Beyond the social media and Facebook pages and that, what kind of one-on-one discussions are you having? Like, you know, I mean, he was on, Jerry Earle was on earlier this week. He talked about months yet to go before anything could probably realistically be changed in the collective bargaining process or with regard to market adjustments. So there doesn't seem to be any immediate relief. What do you do now?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because we had a guy from the union actually had a meeting with us last night, and the impression we got from him was, I'm sorry, guys, there's nothing we can really do about this, and there's nothing I can tell you because I'm not on the bargaining team. So,
well,
like, how do we react to that, you know?
Not helpful. You just want information, communication, even if... Look, you know, you can be told yes or no till the cows come home, but depending on when you're told and how you're told, and if you're told, that helps.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing I really wanted to get to here is boosting one trade's salary over another by half and telling the other trades to go fly a kite is insane, obviously. I'm stating the obvious. But I think the real issue is, like, why did they have to do that in the first place? Why would you have to boost a trade by $25,000? It's because they had dozens of positions, mechanic positions, that they couldn't fill. And why is that? Mm-hmm. It's because they're not paying enough.
Well, it was to sweeten the pot to get more snowplow operators and mechanics and everybody in the system. Yeah.
That's the sad part. The saddest part of all is that it didn't work. There's still dozens of positions open. I think they may have filled 3. So if you increase a trade by $25,000, I mean a salary by $25,000, and you're still not getting people, what does that say? It means you're not paying enough. People don't care about market factor adjustments. They want to see a wage on paper, a dependable wage that keeps up with inflation. I mean, we're not asking for $50, $60 an hour like on the big sites. No one expects that, but can they at least pay us what the town of Clareville is paying their tradesmen? It's pretty sad when the town of Clareville, with less than 10,000 people, are paying like $38 an hour, and the province of Newfoundland can't pay us at least that much. Like, does that make any sense to you?
It doesn't on the surface. And look, even the minister, Pettin, Transportation Minister Barry Pettin, has said in the past. I mean, when this came down and he spoke to it and he acknowledged it, like earlier this year, back in February, I think it was. I mean, he said he didn't like these kind of one-offs, the term he used, to keep skilled workers from leaving and going to the private sector, or even just recruiting them. He just blanketly said, we need it to keep going. I don't like it, he said. I'm just looking up a quote now that we had in our news from back in February. He said, when we've got a situation where we put out the call for positions and 180 apply, and we find 20 out of that are suitable and can't fill our complement, then that's a problem. So, I mean, he has expressed he doesn't like the way this is done either, but it seems like they were in a rock and a hard place, like they are with many things. Look, all we need to look at is the Outlook credit rating that we just, or the bond rating, the Outlook, Standard & Poor's, that has been labeled slapped on the province in the past few days. The government knew it was coming, but this is a problem. Spending costs have to be reduced, and yet we have to keep the roads safe, and we have to keep mechanics and snowplow operators on the road. So, they're in a tough spot. And when it comes to market adjustments, I guess they're increasing the salaries for the most, what they consider are the most important jobs. I don't know how that makes you feel.
Well, it's obviously not working. And you're talking about, I listened to your show a fair bit, and people were calling in there last winter about saying certain roads there weren't done properly or done poorly or something. That's not the operator's fault. That's because they don't have any mechanics to fix the gear when it gets broken. That's the problems there.
Yeah, which is what I was just I was expecting actually to go right in there, because you can say that the operators are the important part of it and had to be recruited, but if the machines aren't in working order, then that's not going to work either. So how do you say one is more important than the other, I guess, or is worth more than the other?
Yeah, really, and we tried to get this job reclassification, and one of the things the government came back with is like, oh, your wages might not be top notch, but you're getting benefits, sure. But people working at McDonald's gets benefits now. I mean, that's not anything to brag about. And to be honest, our health benefits aren't that great in comparison to some other jobs.
Yeah, and not to, of course, disparage minimum wage workers in the fast food industry or any other industry, because everybody's struggling.
I didn't mean like that. I'm just saying that once upon a time, I mean, McDonald's workers didn't get benefits, but
sure.
Like most companies now, you're going to get benefits. Like even the smallest shops are getting benefits now.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be, I don't want to call it a carrot, but there has to be those incentives and the benefits just to keep, because in this world of retaining and recruitment and wages and the cost of living and people wanting higher salaries or something in lieu of that, they almost have to go to the benefit level, I mean, if you can't afford to pay them, then you can stretch it out, make more minimal incentives if you want through a benefit system than you can through paying, just bumping salaries up, hey?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be honest, like, between the men and women, the tradesmen, like, for a while, we thought that, like, is the government secretly trying to just phase us out and bring in the private industry? Like, that's kind of what it felt like with these wages. And I just want to reiterate that sending this stuff out to the private industry does cost a fortune, because, like, we joke between us at work is that, anytime a local business sees the government of Newfoundland and Labrador on the caller ID, everything in the shop goes up by 500%. That's a joke among us, right?
Yeah. So. And I can see it being a joke, sort of, joke, but not a joke, hey, because it's reality.
Yeah.
Caller, look, I appreciate you said right off the top that we're probably getting tired of it. Not at all. It is, when you look at the number of calls that I get in a run of a day, this issue has dominated many of them, and it speaks to the urgency and the problems that you have in the shop and the need for a little bit more, equity across the board to keep, the morale up and to keep the operators, to keep the mechanics in place and to keep the operators and the plows on the road. So keep it going and encourage others to do so. I encourage others to do so. And I look forward to another chat with the Transportation Minister at any point. When he says it's a problem and they have no other mechanism but a market adjustment, then some might say there's got to be other options in their what do you call it, in the basket, but I don't know. I look forward to his conversation. Again, we had the union on again and trying to get an idea of if and when and what the status is of these employees. Always important too. So strength in numbers, we've been told that as well.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you giving me the time, and I know for the fact that most of the people that have called in so far have been like around the Avalon area, so I'd just like to give a shout out to the tradesmen in Central on the West Coast to start calling in too, because the more of us call in, the more the public knows about this. Yep,
absolutely. Couldn't agree more, and they're listening. So thanks for that, and look forward to yours and any of them. The lines are open.
All right, thank you.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number one, and caller, you're on the air.
Hi.
Good morning.
I'm just calling to basically show my support, I guess, for the fellow NAPE workers that are dealing with the wage disparity.
Yeah, and it's great to hear from others in the union realm on this. Some great, I think I received a note from you as well, because I know sometimes it can be hard to wait online, but you have some unique insight into this. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so I'm currently working for NL Health Services, so we're not in exactly the same neck of the woods. but we're facing similar issues. And like we've been dealing with NAPE on and off now for the last 4 years. We do get small raises, obviously. Like our last one was something similar to what they were offered. It was one of these, you kind of have to take it. This is the best you'll get. And it still put us behind the ball of inflation by nearly 16% over the last 8 years, which is our 2 last collective agreements. Mm-hmm. But we also have a lot of issues in the same sense as for wage disparity between, say, like NL Health Services and Memorial University. We have the exact same trades at Memorial University, make $38 an hour, while we make $30.80 an hour. So it's almost an $8 an hour difference.
That's a big difference.
Trade in the same union.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we've been told is you're in healthcare, which is a non-profit organization, which would be the reason why you make less money, essentially, which at the time we were like okay with. But now with the way the wages have been going with trades and the way inflation is going, a lot of us are starting to leave, basically. We have more open positions than ever. And on top of that, we have people that have been in the system for a long time who are basically taking leave of absences to work for other people to make ends meet. Many of us have started like our own companies and such on the side just to try to pay our bills and things like that. And we keep losing people. Like if you go to the NL Health Service Board now for careers, you'll see like 10 plus carpenter positions, 2 electrician positions, upwards of 5 plumber positions. We can't get millwrights anymore. We can't get refrigeration techs anymore. We have none in the system anymore. Just because we don't pay a livable wage realistically. And I don't know, like we brought it up to NAPE a bunch of times, and like the other gentleman said before about bringing contractors in, which is kind of what we're met with most of the time. We're told, like, you know, with us and our package for our pensions and stuff like that, which we pay half out of pocket, we're too expensive, essentially. And because the operating budget for contractors comes out of a different budget, they would sooner go that route than have... And
to say you're too expensive when they're getting paid 5 times probably what you are.
Yeah, so like I was a contractor prior to joining NL Health Services nearly 5 years ago. And back then it was $100 an hour was the going wage, and I still have many contacts in contract industry. And now it's $150. So I know what they're paying out. Like it's $150 an hour, and that's because these people need to pay their people, plus themselves and their office staff and the business need to make a profit. So, but because it's coming out of a different budget, the capital works budget, it's deemed acceptable, which is flabbergasted me, honestly, that the government would sooner pay 5x the amount of money to a local contractor instead of 5 times less, which we're still being underpaid. But even if it was 4 times less, you know, we'd still save a bunch more money. Or you be able to hire more staff, which I'm sure anybody who walks the hospitals nowadays can attest that the buildings are only getting older.
Yeah,
and you know what I mean? Like it's...
Yeah, and if you can find those staff to work for the money that you know that you're working for. And, you know, the provincial government and public services, obviously, governments are up against other barriers that private companies aren't. So you can see why the drain is happening. But, and especially with a government that has the cost pressures that it has, you know, it's in these realms every time. They have to be accountable to the public, and they have to meet budgets and that sort of thing, which, again, private doesn't have to. So how do they improve the incentives, and how do they retain?
Yeah, like I know, even to give a direct comparison, we used to have a project team, the NAPE project team, and it had electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and we'd go around any of the old age homes, not just the hospitals, but even the old age homes and such that are owned by NL Health Services, and we do major projects, right, for a lot less, obviously, because we're not pocketing any sort of extra bonuses afterwards, or we're not after profit. We're just doing the job as cheap as we possibly could in the best capability that we could. And they laid all of them off 5-6 years ago, I believe it was, and they haven't been brought back. We have a small crew that'll come out of Pleasant View Towers to do smaller jobs, but they're quite literally like a couple carpenters. That's it. No electricians, no plumbers. We will flex people if we can, but there's we have so many less people now that it's hard to flex anybody to move to a different position temporarily, for instance, right? when you're taking somebody from a hospital that's already understaffed. So most people won't make that move.
And as hard as it is,
the union, I know, has worked to try to do it the best they can, but it's being met with just absolute roadblock. Like I said, we have JASs and job analysis in with the government now, just to try to get up to like 36 or 38, whatever they think would be acceptable. But that'll take years, realistically, to make that move. And the workforce is only aging. If you were to look at any of the trades workers, we're not enticing new people. There's not a lot of new blood.
What keeps you there? What keeps you from going off to another more stable, high-paying job?
Well, I currently have job offers from other people, and I've turned them down. And the only reason I'm still at the hospital is because I enjoy helping the patients that are there. Like, if I think they can be in a better state of mind because of the work I do, like if I get a call, for instance, we need to fix some drywall in a hallway, okay, and then I get another call and says, like, we need to fix a light in a patient room. I will always prioritize the patient room because it's going to give them a better stay at the hospitals or at the old age homes, especially because, like I said, they live in those places.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's their home. And when you bring contractors in, it's about profit. You know what I mean? It's about getting in and out as fast as possible with really nobody checking their work.
Yep.
And you get subpar options usually.
Well, look, the support, I'm sure, is appreciated by the rest of NAPE. Got to get off to a break, but I do appreciate the call, and yours, not just from the MOS people, but yourself, other people in the realm who can, feel their pain. Thanks for the call. Have a great weekend.
Appreciate you having me on.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Right to line number 6, and Larry Short, Portfolio Manager, Senior Wealth Advisor, Short Financial, IA Private Wealth. So, may we live in interesting times. I think the first thing we should just clarify, not a lot of people are used to hearing the credit outlook as opposed to the credit rating. And this, is kind of a preemptive, I described it as a kick in the pants for the government that no longer, is it satisfactory just to, keep spending and trying to envelope it into the debt and the deficit without addressing costs and expenses. Is that what this is? Just a way of saying, look, the way you've done it is not going to be the way you can continue to do it?
That's exactly correct. And that's why it's so very, very different from other pronouncements we've seen from rating agencies prior. And it's a little bit of a surprise because going into the budget, most recent budget, the provincial government said that they had met with the bond rating agencies, and when they say they had met, you would expect that they would say something to the effect of, it's either in keeping with what their expectations were, or there's a change in attitude, etc. And that didn't come out prior to this announcement. So now we are seeing that this is a definite change in the outlook and their expectations that indeed the government has now, regardless of how glorious the revenue might be in the future, they're saying you have to cut costs, and that's completely different than what we've seen before.
Yeah, and I heard Finance Minister Party, referencing this 80-20 split. So the idea now that they'll put, 80% of whatever unexplained or extra revenues that come in, and the only extra or unexplained that I could see right now would be anything over and above the $79 a barrel oil benchmark they set in the budget, and it's currently hovering around 90. It's been as high as 120 and 110, which would bring in more revenues. But should that be? How do you view that? Do you think that'll be enough to sort of placate the bond rating agencies?
No, that's missing the entire point. The entire point is not that we're going to take a portion of this and pay down the debt. They're saying the bond rating agency says, no, you need to cut the costs. So even if you came out tomorrow and said that 100% of any money that is above this number, is above what we expect, above $79, we're going to use that to pay down the debt, then it's not going to change the outlook on the credit rating. What they're saying is that you have to cut your costs. Recently I was reading an article by, I'm trying to remember his name, sorry, he's going to hate me afterwards, and he's pointed out that the only time that the province of Newfoundland and Labrador has balanced its budget is by accident, right? That the revenue figures are coming in higher. Sure. And as a consequence, it is almost expected, regardless of whether you're a Liberal PC, regardless of who's running the government, that a continued growth in expenses will occur. In times past, I've criticized the government because I've said there's no plan. We now have a plan.
Well, we have the Moya Green plan, right? The Moya Green report spelled it all out, all the hard decisions and austerity measures that really they needed to do. But it looks like the government of the day kind of flinched on that one and said, well, we'll go with some of them. But, I mean, politically, it seems like they really kicked it down the road to now. Right.
So two points. One is that the statement by the current minister is to say that we're going to pay down the debt. That's not what this thing is saying. It's that you have to actually cut the expenses because you do not know, or the rating agencies do not know if the revenue is going to continue in the future. So you can't control revenue. The only thing you can control is your expenses. They want the expenses to be cut. So that's kind of, we need to be really, really clear about that.
Yeah, and I also noticed, too, I mean, they're trying to put the good news with the bad. I mean, the minister will also cite the potential for GDP, the outlook for GDP as opposed to real GDP, which is in our hands. So a lot of this is forward thinking, as they say, when you're looking at the, financial statements of companies and they talk about forward thinking. That's not going to do it, though, in the short term, it doesn't seem. And so, then they're revisiting, like, as I mentioned, more Green report, even though we didn't get a good, solid, look at some of the redacted stuff and all of the things that were suggested, it seems to suggest that, as you said, the costs and that sort of thing are coming home to roost. It's going to be more than just, and the other, I'm sorry, not to conflate thoughts here, but I think of the Premier saying the last thing we need to do now is to rush into anything, but do they not need some kind of tangible example rather than just the next budget or a plan to show that they may have some guaranteed income that can somehow show that not just cause, expense cost cutting, but also we got some money in the bank. There's something coming.
Okay, so again, to be clear, the Standard & Poor's report assumes there will be a deal with Quebec that will be quite favorable, and assumes that there will be continued and potentially increased oil exploration, mining, all of the wonderful things. So they said, even if you do all that, you still have to start cutting your costs. So it is not a question of tomorrow that there would be some massive increase in taxation that would generate more revenue. The more revenue figure is not in question. It is the cost figure. Yep. We have to take the Moya Green report and start implementing it and start to show that we are actually implementing it, or the cost of borrowing is going to start to increase and potentially will continue to increase as the costs are no longer addressed.
Yeah, and and on that note, so it looks like some of those things are happening before our eyes right now, whether or not you look at issues like a full-scale review of projects that are ongoing, whether it's the canceling of contracts in Cartwright and Stephenville Crossing, because and they're strictly talking about savings there, cost-cutting, trying to do things more efficiently, as well as even if you look at the school bus times, I mean, across the board, it's sort of a drip, drip, drip right now of areas where they are looking at cutting costs, and they seem to be maybe the precursors to the evidence and the attempt to show the bond rating agency, yeah, we are on this, even though they seem like baby steps at this point.
Yes, it's kind of like muddling through. We'll see what we can do around the edges. Yeah. But in order to satisfy the credit rating agencies, it's going to have to be something substantial. So, and the substantial costs are, obviously on healthcare. And it would be, and or salaries in some way, and this is why the various governments over the years have resisted this, right? Because it will be very difficult to keep a caucus together if there is, for example, a hospital that is closed in some district. That member standing up and saying, I'm not putting up with this, I'm going to walk across the floor, is a distinct risk. But that is the sort of large-scale cuts that had to be done to meaningfully say that the costs are going to be reduced in some fashion. Particularly difficult with the fact that the demand for healthcare is going up.
Just want to revisit the initial point that we were talking about in the credit outlook. Generally, how unique or often would a rating agency, issue that kind of a report? And is it only done like in extenuating circumstances, or is it a new tact, or just in specific areas, or how do they do that?
I don't know if it's a new tax, but Province of Nova Scotia was downgraded from A+. I'm trying to remember what they were. I think they were A+. They were downgraded on January 27th because of the exact same issues, rising healthcare and costs primarily, but other costs overall. But the actual warning ahead of time, I'm trying to remember the last time I read that. It is not something that I've seen a lot in our industry. So it is one of those things where the credit rating agency is being much more explicit than it has been in the past. So I don't know if it was a case that they learned from their actions that they had with the province of Nova Scotia and said, and where the province may have come back and said, if you told us ahead of time, well, maybe we could have taken this more seriously. But you can't get much more serious over time than to say that your government is now getting downgraded. The cost of borrowing is going to continue to rise unless she takes this type of action.
And especially when you consider the province has said they were in meetings with these people, over recently. They knew this was kind of coming. They knew the situation before it was announced yesterday, of course, or this week. And of course, we know the repercussions of this. It's important because we're already spending a little over $1 billion just to service the $20 billion, nearly $20 billion debt we have as we speak. And if it does go to that next rating and they don't get the financial house in order, and the rating is reduced from A to whatever, then you're looking at a higher interest rate and the cost of borrowing increases, which is the last thing you need. And that's not going to make it any easier to reduce cut expenses.
Exactly. I mean, and the other part is what happens if indeed some calamity arises. I mean,
unexpected,
quite frankly, a lot of the focus has been on oil prices, and the big question has been, why hasn't the price of oil actually gone higher? And actually it's come down in the last couple of weeks, despite the fact that 20% of the world's oil is being blocked on a continuous basis. And the best explanation that I can find from a number of experts is the fact that the world's been drawing on its reserves. It's been drawing down on its tanks, so that the hope being that this thing will be short term. But if indeed we go beyond the end, or certainly mid-July, those tanks start to hit bottom, and suddenly we may get a very significant spike in oil prices, which to us may look really, really good, but could plunge the world into a worldwide recession. And if indeed that happens, then the federal government will be negatively impacted because the overall revenue from other exports other than oil will dry up, and then payments to the province will drop significantly.
Oh, it's okay though, because the President of the United States said it'll be ended in the next day or two.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had to.
So it is again. There's a hazard out there that people believe that whatever happened in the last number of years will continue to happen in the future. But we've seen that we could have dramatic economic changes, and if that happens quicker, then we could be faced with a much more significant downgrade.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we've kicked the can as far down the road as we can. And we are at the point now where the bond rating agencies are saying you must make these, you must start to cut costs in a meaningful way, or the cost of borrowing is going to rise significantly.
Yeah, the whole thing, and you mentioned recession there. Like this kind of talk about a credit rating versus a credit outlook kind of reminds me of the confusion and conversation around a technical recession versus an actual recession. And so when you get into those nuances, people say, okay, so these are all warning signs, or is it actually happening?
Yeah, and again, the jargon in our industry is something that I battle every day, and I hope I can contribute in helping people understand in plain English and small words exactly what this sort of stuff means, right? That's one of the reasons why I'm on here this morning, is that I personally get frustrated when I see the jargon that is used in our business to, quite frankly, pull the wool over the eyes of the voters and say that, oh yeah, everything is fine as long as things continue on, we should be okay. And I think it was Hemingway said it best when he talked about it. He said the way that you go bankrupt is very slowly at first and then suddenly. And you literally hit a wall, and then the problems arise. And if that happens in this province, the people that are going to be hurt the most are the poor. They suddenly services will be withdrawn that are basic services that will be hurting people, and so as a voter, you should be motivated to say this is enough. This is the point where we want our politicians to actually stand up and say, yes, this has to be addressed, and it has to be all of us together, all of us as a community, so that if somebody does walk across the floor and say, no, it's not going to happen in my district, but it's going to happen in someone else's, we need to say, no, that's not acceptable. And so it's one thing for the members, the MHAs, to say, I am representing my district, and my district says that this is not acceptable, but they have to take the larger view that it is, what do we do as a province? We have to have the attitude that the proper attitude to have is that we need to face this future together and not break into factions to say, yeah, you can close down some of the hospitals or health centers on the Northern Peninsula, but you can't do it on the Avalon Peninsula. We have to find some way to equally distribute the pain and make sure that what we do is build a better future for our children by making this place be able to stand on its own economic feet.
Yep, you're absolutely right. It makes it a conundrum for MHAs. Maybe not the independents, because they will just thumb their nose at the caucuses and just do what they can for their constituents. But maybe that's what makes being an independent a little easier. I don't know. Tougher, maybe, arguably, as well. Larry, look, I really appreciate this, as you said, boiling it down into some plainer speak and trying to make sense of it. The ambiguity and the words that they use in the industry absolutely are meant to sort of just keep it in-house almost, and just tout the positives, and there's nothing to see here until, unfortunately, the house is on fire. So
yes, and I have to give, by the way, the person I was trying to remember earlier, it was Ed Hollett who put it best when he said the only time we've ever had a budget surplus or met the budget is by accident.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
the fortunate circumstances.
We need to move from it being by accident to being design.
On purpose. Absolutely. Agreed. Thanks so much again, Larry. Appreciate the time and the information and the knowledge and everything else. Important to try to put some just plain language understanding around this stuff. So thank you again.
It's my absolute pleasure.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Right to line number one. And Gabe Gregory, professional accountant, of course, and member independent business and consultant and former executive vice president, Operation Fishery Products International. And we could go on, but we only have so much time. Good morning, Mr. Gregory. How are you?
Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Good. So you're part of the group of, shall we say, former senior public servants, lawyers, energy experts, business leaders, and everything that have come out this week with another effort to, basically you've issued your own report on the flawed MOU, A Better Path Forward, and this is in response to the Independent Review Committee's report that called on the government to reject the current MOU that was put forth on the Churchill Falls by the former Liberal government. It's a mouthful, but interesting timing this week with all the goings-on. Do you read anything into the connection between the pressures now facing the government and the resumption of talks with Quebec?
No, difficult for me to read anything into that. I understand that the government is under, pressure, And this week now, the pressure of change in the debt status of the province.
Is there a change? Is there a change when they call it an outlook? Just to be clear, because I know some will say, "Well, nothing's changed." It's there's been a kind of a warning sign, if you will.
Yeah, but that's a change. I mean, that's clearly a public warning that, it contradicts exactly where the government's fiscal planning is at this time. They've said that, significant deficits through the next 4 or 5 years. They're running a cash deficit this year of, $2.5 to $3 billion. And that's, on top of the past 4 years where we've had similar circumstance. And really, as I interpret it, they're saying, it's time to get your act together. And if you don't, you're going to pay a significant price for it.
You were part of the group which authored this report, A Flawed MOU, Better Path Forward, calling on the province to reject the MOU that was authored or signed by the previous Liberal government. And by all accounts, Mr. Gregory, it appears the government has done that. They've at least ditched the Liberal MOU and are now working on a new framework. And, by all reports, are back at the table with Quebec. No timelines yet, although the Quebec Premier has intonated a potential something even could be in the works or something more formal by the Premier's meetings in July. Your thoughts?
Well, on that point, the current government, they lived up to their commitment and fulfilled their commitment to have an independent review of the MOU. The independent review, clearly stated that the MOU was not in the interests of the province, and they made very specific recommendations to the government. And, the principal recommendation was that we need to step back and fully articulate a negotiation strategy and develop a strategy and put in place a best practice governance process to move forward with established goals, policy goals, commercial goals, look at alternative options the province has, alternative means to finance the development. They found many structural significant problems and weaknesses in the MOU. And we came to the same conclusion in our deep dive and the submission we made for those that are interested to read it. I think anybody doing a deep dive into the MOU would come to the same conclusion as the IRC came to, and we came to, is that, we're not the principal beneficiaries of the components of the MOU. And Hydro-Quebec and the people of Quebec are. So that's, it's going to take a lot to fix these issues. And why are we rushing back to negotiate when it appears we haven't, followed the principal recommendation of the report that was commissioned by the administration that's now going back to the table? Are we ready?
Well,
we don't think we're ready.
I don't know what stage it's at. I mean, in one breath, the Premier said they're back at the table, the negotiating teams, and in the other, he said there's no hurry. We're not signing anything. We're just talking. It's just hard to really gauge. Communication's always a really part of this, and unfortunately, in a lot of cases, we're left to read between the lines. What does a delay look like? I guess that's the concern, obviously. I mean, there are people. There's a yeah.
Well, we don't see it as a delay, Brian. We see it as, we need to be very active on the Churchill file, and we need to do what the IRC recommended. We need to develop a strategy with clear, articulated goals and commercial outcomes for the people. So let's talk about the value of the resource. That means that, we go out and we assess what the value of Churchill Falls is, the renewal of the existing plant first and foremost. We own 70% of the equity in that company, okay? And
in
so
CFLCO.
What do the people know in CFLCO, yes,
right,
which is the owner of Churchill Falls plant. And when I say about 70%, I'm looking at the combined shareholdings. The common shareholdings are a little different, but the combined shareholdings, about 70% of the value should be coming to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador from that corporation. This is a plant that produces. It's the most efficient hydroelectricity facility in the country by far, and it generates enormous wealth every year. So today, there's billions of dollars in wealth going to Quebec, and we're getting about $20 million a year into Newfoundland. And we own 70% of this. And we own the resource and the water that generates the electricity. So in our judgment, we should be at minimum getting 75% of the long-term value from Churchill Falls plant in a renewal. And, that means that the government should be telling us what the value of this is, or Hydro should be telling us what the value of this resource is, and we should be benchmarking what our objectives and goals are.
And is
that's just simply on the value question alone. So, in order for the people to understand this, it's like you got a rental in your house, and it's $1,000 a month. You know what it costs you to produce, but in the case of electricity, it costs nothing in Labrador, for 50% a kilowatt. It's basically free, and it's going to stay that way for the next future time. But the value of it is very, very high, and that value is going to increase very significantly with electrification, technology demand, AI. It's already happening. The transition is already occurring. We're seeing this right across North America, where the price of electricity is skyrocketing. And we are not getting that value from the MOU. Yeah, we need to get that value.
So the tact would be, or the idea, of course, that the criticism is that we're giving away too much. Again, we're letting too much control over the actual resource, the power, go away in exchange of financial incentives that might or might not come to fruition over a 50-year term. And I guess, as you're saying, it should be more focused on, controlling where the water is coming from, as opposed to, trying to reap benefits off the price of the electricity.
Yes, and we need to be repatriating this energy.
Yeah.
This is free, and the MOU constrains the access to the energy that we're going to get over 50 years.
And Labrador is going to need it.
Well, or the province is going to need it, or if we don't need it, we should sell it at market-based prices, not at some very low controlled value based on a monopolized energy system within the province of Quebec. That's where we've been for the past 55 years. We have to, break these barriers, and hopefully the federal government, in its development to, move ahead with a national energy grid, which means that, you can, it's like a highway. Yeah. You can get in your car and drive to British Columbia. But when it comes to electricity, on this phone, we can talk to anybody in the country, and the transmission is nationwide. But that's not the way electricity works.
But no, exactly. And so we're going to run into this.
We have that problem, but we have a government in Canada now that's dedicated, they're saying, to developing a national grid. They realize that, as a country, if we're going to grow and meet our challenges and electrification conversion, we need a national grid. We should be buying into that. We should be engaged with the federal government on these big, big issues.
Yeah, and that's the question I've been asking. I've been musing about that very thing. Now that there is a win-win-win, as everybody is saying, and 3 wins means 3 parties, and the third party being the feds. Now, the Premier said yesterday that the feds aren't at the table, but that there could be room, and I'm sure that's the discussion, the financial incentives for whatever reason. But also, can they play a part in brokering and getting us through that quagmire and that the problem that, as you said, yes, trying to make the best deal for us. We all know Quebec has said they're going to tweak if we tweak. How do we get past it and ensure that we do get the best deal? And when will we know? How will we know?
Well, that's the challenge of the government. That's why we're saying that the government needs to establish the thresholds and the goals and objectives and let the people know what their objective is. That's the biggest criticism of the prior negotiation. They clearly went into negotiation unprepared. We didn't do our homework, and we need to correct that. This is not about tweaking the MOU. This is about, renegotiation of the entire MOU. The IRC concluded that all the development projects are fraught with many, many issues. First of all, the CF upgrades and the CF expansion, they are of little to no value. In one case, the upgrades, they say there's zero value back to the province of Newfoundland. So here we are. The proposal was to spend $2 billion to upgrade the turbine generators, $1.9 billion, but we're not going to get no benefit from it. The power was going to Quebec. It was going there at cost. The cost structure that was defined was flawed, they said. I mean, these are serious fundamental problems that got to be addressed if we're going to get things right. And, this requires a full rethink. That's just one example, I put it there. I mean, they say that, there's no necessity, from an international standards point of view, when you're talking about term, 50 years, that does not exist in the world of Churchill Falls plant, where there's no debt. They say, it's commonly shorter than 25 years. I personally have researched this issue and could find no such contracts internationally, beyond 20, 25 years. So, I mean, there's enormous risks in Newfoundland of getting into a pricing system that's not well defined and not knowing what we're going to get for the power and is not market-based. When we're talking about inflationary increases over time, the value will not be there. And that's the big, big weaknesses in the MOU. We're talking about cost-based pricing, no market-based pricing.
And with that comes a great, like one of the key points that you've made in your submission and in your letter regarding this, the no meaningful reopener clauses or exit provisions, because those could be the key to dealing with any fluctuations and changes. We all know what happened in '69. Nobody expected the price of electricity to go where it went, and the energy crisis drove it, which is what's kind of happening now, not on the same level. But without the absence of reopener clauses or exit provisions, we were forced to run to the Supreme Court to see if they'd help us out. And of course they weren't going to. We had a contract. So those reopener clauses and exit provisions seem to be a key element for me.
Yeah, and you're making an excellent point, Brian. I mean, any long-term contract, even 20 years, where you don't have, no one can predict what the price of electricity is going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now.
A month from now.
Right? I mean, but we know that this change is going to happen over the next 2, 3, 4 decades. And we know already that the demand is going to drive prices. That's already happening. Now, yes, there's risk of technological change, but we shouldn't worry about that because we don't have debt associated with this generation. Okay?
Right.
The plant produces power virtually free. So we should be willing to take the market price risk of up and down, no matter which way it goes. As long as we get our fair share of the value, we shouldn't be concerned. And you make the right point that even in a 20 or 25-year contract, there should be a 5-year window of opener. If the world changes, both sides are not going to be happy. If one is, wrong in any way. It's not that they're wrong. It's that all these things are based on forecasts and assumptions, and we all know that over time they don't pan out. The assumptions are always wrong, and we're never going to get that right. But particularly over 50 years. So you need to have dynamic pricing. You need to have openers to say every 5 years we're going to relook at this. And, we might have to adjust the pricing one way or the other, up or down. But that's how you deal with these kind of risks. We have to avoid the 1969, trap that we got into. And that's very much what we're doing under the MOU. And, the approach our government is taking, I use the analogy as, when I was growing up, the school bus would come and, every day a couple of dogs, at that time people didn't control the dogs very well, the dogs would chase the bus for, a period of time. The wheels would be turned. But that's what we're doing here, it appears to me, that we are chasing a bus. And Quebec is in control of the bus, they're driving the bus, but we own the bus. And we need to reverse that. We own this plant. We need to assert ourselves as owners of this plant. We need to yes, we need to negotiate with Quebec. I have no grudge against the people of Quebec or Quebec. I mean, they got a contract. We got to live with it. We're not going to change that until the time comes. But the thing about it is that we own this plant. It's paid for. It belongs to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, and we need to get our fair share of the benefit. That's all this is about. Nothing else.
Absolutely. And we know the nuances, the intricacies of like who's getting the best in the fine print. All of that can be buffered by those reopeners. I just say it again. I don't mean to beat that one, but that one jumps out at me as the biggest one, because as circumstances change, this seems to be the one clause that would benefit both provinces. Why would either province argue about that? So if we could agree on that, then we can refine the terms of the opener clauses, what exactly is discussed, the price, whatever. If we agree on that, then we have that insurance. Gabe, look, I'm sorry I kept you too long. I just wanted to say that. Last comment. Go ahead.
I just reiterate that, the MOU is flawed, is based on, assumptions that favor Quebec, not Newfoundland. The outcome of the MOU was clear from the IRC report, and we really need to do our homework to get ready to correct the problems in the MOU if we're going to get a new deal. Mm-hmm. And I hope we get a new deal. I don't think we should have any expectation about the end of July. That's totally unrealistic. If it is by the end of July, it will have been a rushed and flawed process, and the outcome will likely be a poor one.
Gabe Gregory, I appreciate the time today with the group, of course, a path forward, and calling for the time is on our side, as you say. And I love the bus metaphor. That one just rings true for a lot of people. Thanks again for your time today, and I hope you'll weigh in again as developments occur, and we know they will.
Yeah, we're watching it closely, so I'm sure the people in Newfoundland are very interested in this file.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much, Brian, for your time. Thanks to your listeners.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
The president of the Newfoundland and Labrador Teachers Association, Dale Lamb. Good morning, Dale.
Good morning, Brian. How are you this morning?
Pretty good for a Friday, foggy Friday, but, could be worse. Fair to middling. And yourself?
Oh, doing well, thanks. And an official congratulations now while we're on air for your new position. You're certainly doing an excellent job.
Well, I appreciate every little bit helps for the psyche and just for getting me through some days, because you can't please everybody, and I'm not going to, and I'm not out to do that. And you can't repair or fill 16 years of a previous host in a month either. So I appreciate everyone's patience, some a little more than others, but, that's it. Comes with the territory. I knew that going in. Dale, we had a great little chat there the other day at Holy Heart when we were watching our kids do the variety show there. That was a nice, relaxing moment. No, nothing like this show.
Sure, yeah.
But it's good to see you there, and thanks for following up and having a chat. Look, there's as I said, in the school realm, in the teacher realm, there's so much. I'm sure you've been aware of some of the talk about the school busing, new bell times, and all that sort of thing. What's on the top of your mind these days as the president of NLTA?
Well, it's always about making class conditions better so that we can keep the teachers that are in the system right now there. And, we have a lot of class size composition issues. The 28 to 30 students that existed, 15 years ago certainly are a lot different now. So our teachers need the supports in place to make sure that those students are looked after and that the work conditions are favorable so that they stay.
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly enough, this is graduation time, of course, but you'd like a lot more teachers graduating, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, certainly. We have had higher numbers the last couple of years coming from MUM Faculty of Education. Mm-hmm. And as an association, we work closely with those folks. But we'd like to see more people expressing an interest in teaching. And, of course, if you got favorable working conditions, that's really going to entice them to not only enter, but to stay in the profession.
Yeah, and look, so I mean, retirees, that's an issue, and as you said, staffing, and I mean, you can't give the kids best due if they don't have the right ratio. But the violence is also very concerning. The number of emails I get from parents who don't really want to leave their name, don't want to get involved, but are deeply concerned behind the scenes when it comes to the sort of issues they're dealing with in schools. Times have changed a lot. The job description of a teacher has changed immensely. I guess, in some ways that's contributing to the difficulties. Is it with staffing, and how bad is the violence getting from what you're hearing, even privately?
Well, I mean, what I'm hearing, and like yourself, I have many members or parents who reach out, to ask about current conditions. And violence is definitely a big issue for us right now as teachers and as educators. What I'm finding is there's more of an intensification of the hate that's felt, and probably a lot to do with current topic in the media, of social media. For young people. At one time, Brian, you could turn it off. You'd hang up the phone, and the matter would be done until the next morning. But because of the strength and the power of social media, that those conflicts, they go through the night, and as a result, that violence comes out, that aggression comes out, because everything bubbles for so long. So in the classroom, it's a big distraction. It's a big distraction for teachers. Like, you go into teaching in order to teach your subject matter, to make sure that, there's passion for the subjects that you're teaching, or to help them learn to read and write. When you're dealing with violence and aggression, it certainly complicates your ability to do so.
Is the ban on cell phones and that sort of thing, assisting in what ways, the restricted nature in public schools and, prohibited from driving, of course, but, to what extent is that contributing? And, where are we in progress of being able to put it down when we're in school?
So I'm hearing a lot of positive from members about the cell phone ban. They're viewing that to be a very positive thing. Anytime that, distractions from education or from what you're responsible to teach is eliminated, that's a positive thing. It allows for opportunities to make sure the curriculum is covered. With regards to social media, though, what we're experiencing is, once again, what I referred to there about, the stuff that goes on after school hours through social media ends up coming through in aggression, because there's just no turning it off. And that is what gets in the way. You don't go into teaching to break up fights. You don't go into teaching to deal with conflict to the degree that we're experiencing it right now.
Yeah, and on that note, with social media, what do you make of the efforts now on the national scene and the provincial scene? I mean, do you see an all-out ban the best way to go, or should there be a flexible nature to this so that we can, again, I just mused yesterday about making a part of the curriculum. I mean, financial stuff like banking and all that. When I graduated from high school, there was nothing like that. You had a bank book and people told you to watch your money, but you had no real idea how it all worked. And the same goes with the social media sort of ban. Is, do we just throw the baby out with the bathwater, or is there room for a curriculum, education on better ways and the mental aspect, the risk to mental health that comes with it?
Yeah, and I agree with you there, Brian, like what you're saying. It's going to be up to government and leadership to come up with how this is done. And, I'm going to be watching closely. That can't come back on at the hands of teachers. We can't be responsible for all of what happens. But when it comes to social media, we've seen the mental health impacts that it has on young people whose brains aren't developed really enough to be able to handle what they're facing or what they're doing. You've also seen lawsuits settle over the last little while whereby major corporations that run these social media enterprises, like they've had to admit that they know how to manipulate people mentally in order to yield the biggest bang for their buck. So, with with that, with the corporate power that's held there, we need to make sure that our children are protected. So government's going to have to come up with a plan to make sure that they know heading into the situation that moderation is very important. But if a ban takes place, it is done with great consideration in mind to make sure that those that are tasked with making sure that this is enforced, that doesn't just come back on the hands of teachers.
Yeah, and it's been, I don't want to go down a dark road too much here, but it's been like 3 or 4 months now since the Tumbler Ridge tragedy, and we can kind of look back now and try to get a larger, wider swath picture of how that all affected us in the moment and what we've been able to think about it later. Do you remember what your initial thought was when you, as a president of the Province's Teachers Association, what your initial thought was when you heard this, and then the story as it developed, what had happened here?
Yeah, it was quite emotional, I'm not going to lie. I'm also a school principal. That's the position that I'm currently on leave from, and I just cannot imagine the impact that had on the community. But then experiencing what we experienced as a nation in the days that followed, like, this is something that we have to learn from. Still speaking to the president in British Columbia, Carl, about the experience of their teachers as they go through things. But that day is a dark day in my career. I equated it to the day in my first year of teaching, whereby Columbine occurred, and like the students, they just come to you looking for your response and looking for safety and security and how you respond to their questions and concerns. So members had concerns during that time frame. They were reaching out, and their concerns were genuine in the fact that they don't want this to happen in our province. So what are you going to do as the president of the association to increase security in our buildings, to work with government to make sure that protocols and policies are put in place so we don't experience a tragedy like that? Because you got to remember that Tumbler Ridge was the only community of 2,500, and we have so many communities here in our province of Newfoundland and Labrador with either similar numbers or with lower compositions, whereby those schools they're very vulnerable if they don't have safety and security protocols and policies in place. Are you comfortable with the safety level and in our schools right now for your teachers, for your members, and for students and for staff and everyone else? What I'll say to that, Brian, is that, we continue to work with government. We actually had a meeting this week with a number of stakeholders and government, the Safety Coalition. And, the goal there is to make sure that you do as much as you can to make sure that the teachers of the province, teaching, learning assistants, and the students are protected. So conversations need to continue. You're never going to get to a point of perfection, but you can always work to fine-tune to make sure that you have the safest environment possible. And the last one, just a couple of minutes to go here. I just wanted to ask you if the bell times, of course, the survey that's been distributed to schools, not all schools, but most schools, and the list is there. I shouldn't even say most schools, but there are a significant number, not all, but a number of them that have been included in this survey. Potential changes to the 2027-2028 year and the start times and end times at schools. What kind of concerns or what kind of feedback are you getting from your members, your teachers on this? Well, anytime mass change like that is proposed, there's two things that come. Number one, concerns about the change and how it impacts you, but also how it's going to impact everyone around us. So with the bell changes, certainly a lot of members have reached out, and my advice to them is if government have put out a survey, then you need to make sure that your voice is counted in what comes forward. And I know government is citing that, this is a cost-saving measure, and the money that's saved is going to go back into educational infrastructure. Well, my challenge to government is to look at how it can be put back directly into classroom setting, so that we have lower class sizes, so our teachers can deliver the curriculum effectively, and that the students do get the best value for the educational investment that our province is seeing. Have you been consulted yet, the association, on that issue, or were you like everyone else, the survey is there now and we'll just respond? there's always a communication that'll go out just prior to the communication from government, so that did occur. But with regards to seeking our input, we're to fill out that survey, no different from the general public. So we need to make sure that our teachers, our TLAs, our parents, if these proposed changes are going to impact you, well, you need to make sure that government hears that through the thought exchange process that they put out.
Absolutely, and people have until Sunday to do that. The 14th, I believe, midnight is the deadline. So there you go,
yeah,
and that's a
turnaround there. So make sure it's done.
Absolutely, that's why we threw that in there. Dale Lamb, president of the Newfoundland and Labrador Teachers Association. Thanks for making time for this today. Enjoy your weekend, and thanks again for your time.
All right. Thank you, Brian, for the opportunity. Have a great weekend.
Okie dokie. That'll do it for the Friday. That'll do it for the week. Thanks, everyone, for your patience and your support and your encouragement. Even those who are still a little bit skeptical, give me time. I'll win you over. Drive safely, arrive alive. VOCM cares.